Hello guys, it's Alan the Collector, and for this review we've got a special one straight from the mechanized division. We're going to be taking a look at the brand new deluxe M113 Armored Personnel Carrier by Gridiron Studios. And man, am I excited to show off this one. Word on the street is that after delivering the absolute unit that was the Phalanx, many of you still wanted a certain company to tackle something fully tracked.
Challenge accepted.
Well, the folks at Gridiron Studios heard your calls and whipped up the M113 straight from the labs of the mechanized division to go right into our collections. And the end result is probably their most faithful recreation of a real-world military vehicle yet. So of course you know I had to take a crack at it, and we're going to go over absolutely everything this thing can do. But before we dive in, you're probably going to want to know how to put it together, so how about we take a look at what it comes with. And the M113 comes with the modest amount. We get a 50 caliber machine gun, a black mount with ammo can, 2 taillight baskets to help store a pair of green jerry cans, a mallet, an axe, 3 cages for lights, a tow hitch, a vertical exhaust pipe, a backpack, and a pair of antennae, one short, one long. Now, according to my research on the Google machine, the M113 was the very first aluminum hull combat vehicle to be put into mass production in the United States, and is the product of the food machinery company known today simply as FMC, a nearly 150-year-old company which specialized in insecticide production but later got into the military game after receiving a contract from the Department of Defense in the 1940s to build an amphibious tracked vehicle, and the M113 was the result. And Gridiron Studios faithfully replicated that design. The entire body has been 3D printed out of that drab military green plastic, which makes it feel right at home with most other Gridiron Studios products. And as to be expected, they're continuing to push the envelope of the quality that you can get from 3D printing. I mean, we can get really close to this thing, and it really does replicate the surface of a real-life military vehicle. Of course, we get all sorts of riveting detail around the perimeter when we get closer to the treads. We also see a little bit here towards the front of the vehicle. And I also like the addition of the spare wheel that's been 3D printed out of a combination of green and black resin, plus all the riveting and bolt detail that we're getting as we get to the center of the wheel. That's nice. Take special note of the ventilation that Gridiron Studios added. This is actually a separate piece, but the way they designed it, it sits really flush against the hull. The earlier models of the M113 didn't include this ventilation, and as a result, this thing didn't only look like an oven, but it would heat up like one too. So this would provide some additional relief for those inside. And that ventilation is also mirrored on the opposite side as well. And then we also get a peg right here that'll come in handy for an accessory later. But of course, the biggest draw is going to be the tread system on this thing. Now, as you've seen in previous Gridiron Studios reviews, they're certainly not new to 3D printing fully functional treads, which has become a main staple for their drone lowers. But what they've done here is upscale that for an APC. Each of these wheels can actually spin independently of each other, including these sprockets here at the back. The end result are real working treads. So while these might not roll as easily on a smooth surface as well as rubber treads would, it's certainly not impossible. And with a little bit of imagination, you can really make it look like this thing is on the move. The front continues that boxy design, and we get to see the other 3D printed details like the lights that we have painted in silver. We also have spare tread links that are technically removable. However, take special note that some of the finishes aren't as good as some of the other surfaces. You can obviously see more of those 3D printed layer lines right here. Not a deal breaker by any stretch, but I do wish it was as smooth as some of the other portions that we're getting below it. I'm also digging the addition of these hoops that you could attach tow rings or a chain to, and then a riveted armored underbody to protect the occupants inside. I also like this brown dry brushing that we're getting towards the underside of the vehicle. We can even see that on some of the treads and on the sides as well. But perhaps my favorite detail is what's behind this front portion. I mean, just check out that engine block.
Whoa! It's got one of those big shiny things with a lot of tubes and curly coils coming out of it.
Actually, this is the Detroit 6V53T pack turbocharged V6 two-stroke diesel engine.
Yeah, I don't speak that.
It's been sculpted really well. It's all 3D printed out of a black resin with silver dry brushing to give it a nice worn look. And even though this is a feature that's commonplace from companies like Hasbro and perfected by companies like Fans Hobby, it's really nice to see Gridiron Studios stepping into that game for that extra added layer of realism. Quickly moving up top, I love how busy the roof of this thing looks. We get all sorts of panel lining and riveting detail that Gridiron Studios has become known for at this point. We do get accents of blacks of the driver's hatch as well as the commander's hatch. I'm especially digging all the bolt detail that we're getting here, as well as this gold star that's been painted towards the back. It really helps this thing to pop. And then I'm especially digging the grading detail that we're getting where it's been dry brushed with the black paint to indicate some exhaust or maybe some soot from firearms. We can see that same level of dry brushing towards the back as well when we get to these back areas right here. And similar to the design of the Phalanx, each of these hatches can open. A very nice touch. And then, of course, because of the design, the middle portion can also be removed, as well as the weapon support hatch, to give us a better idea of what the inside of this thing looks like. But for that, we might as well go to the back of the vehicle, where we can get a better look at the rear entry hatch. All of the bolts and interlocking mechanism sculpted onto the surface of this rear entry hatch really helps to give it a heavy-duty feel. I also dig the sculpted towing cables. They aren't functional, but it's a nice touch. Oh, and peep this. I guess I've been referring to this thing wrong the whole time. It says GS113.
I see what you did there.
Other than some touches of yellow, some silver 3D printed resin, and some brown dry brushing to help bring out the details in the grime, my favorite aspect about this rear entry hatch is the fact that Gridiron Studios actually engineered a functioning door. I appreciate how thick Gridiron Studios sculpted the door, and I also like the black 3D printing that we're getting around it to help accent it and make it look a bit reinforced. And then it closes with the satisfying click, and when you do that, you can open the hatch. And Gridiron got the measurements of that door just right. Aside from that panel lining we're getting, the ramp is smooth to the touch, revealing a rather spacious interior. And though it's not quite as deep as the Phalanx was, it still has plenty of seating to comfortably seat 7. Not to mention 2 adjustable platforms for weapons positions. And while there aren't any areas specifically designated for weapons like the Phalanx had, you do have some shelving on either side that you could use for supplies or any other accessories that your figures might have. I'm also digging all the sculpting that they did on this piping, the tread plate pattern that we're getting throughout the surface, the different ventilations that we're getting on the back walls. And even though it's a bit hard to make out, they also 3D printed some extra detail on the dashboard behind the steering wheel. And now that we've gone over the basic details, it's time to start loading her up. Starting first with these cage lights. We saw them first on the Hound, they've been put on the Phalanx, and now we're getting them for the M113. We get a pair of singles and then one in a row of 3, and they'll just friction fit onto the lights. Very cool. And while we're at the front, we might as well take a look at this vertical exhaust pipe. I like the black riveting that we're getting around the perimeter. I like the curved shape that we're getting, and because the pipe goes pretty deep, you could probably attach a smoke effect to it if you have one lying around. And it has a square peg that will help it attach to the roof of our M113, where you'll find several diamond-shaped peg holes like this, but the vertical exhaust pipe is supposed to attach here on the front, and make sure that it's pointing away from the vehicle when you do so you're not blowing exhaust into your figures. And while we're on the side of the vehicle, you'll notice that peg that I mentioned earlier. That's intended for this backpack. It's been 3D printed out of that drab military green and then dry brushed with the light brown, so it really gives it a dirty, worn feel. When you get really close, you can start seeing some evidence of that 3D printing detail, but from a distance, I don't really mind it. There's a giant hole in the back of it. Now that's obviously to accommodate this peg, and it looks pretty nice when attached. Moving on to the back, you'll notice just like our Phalanx, we have 2 areas for taillights. And we have a pair of them right here. They're a bit thinner than what we got with the Phalanx, but the design is overall the same. The 3D printing is a little bit more obvious when we get to the inner portions of it, but the outside still looks good, and you'll notice that we have these square gaps that will accommodate these tabs and these protrusions sticking out of the back of the M113. All you have to do is line it up, do the same thing to the other side. And as I mentioned earlier, these taillights double as storage areas for some jerry cans, and Gridiron Studios included a pair of them here. Green jerry cans means that they're intended for gas, while black ones are intended for water. I wouldn't have known that if it weren't for you guys with military experience in the comment section below, so I appreciate your input and encourage it in this review as well. But in any case, we can make sure that the M113 doesn't run on empty. And while we're back here, we may as well attach the tow hitch. It's the same one that we got on our Jungle Hound and other Gridiron Studios vehicles, and we have these 4 prongs that will allow it to attach to this gap right here. So now the M113 can tow other vehicles you might have in your collection, whether they're from the Gridiron Studio library or other lines you might be collecting. And going back up top, you know what time it is.
Hammer time!
That's right, so we'll need to make room for this sledgehammer and this axe. We get a silver resin for the metal portions of both weapons, and then we also get brown for the handles. I also like how the axe has a more angular sculpt to it than our sledgehammer does. And while you can put these in the hands of 6-inch figures that you might be collecting, you can also store them on the top of the M113. Take note of these protrusions in the center. They'll be able to grip onto the handle of our hammer and our axe. For the hammer, all we have to do is just kind of slide it right in, and it stays fairly securely. But the axe is a little bit trickier. Because of its angular shape, it's not going to slide in nearly as easy, and you'll also notice that there's a little bit of give to the handle. So you don't want to force this thing when sliding it in or removing it, otherwise you might break it.
Hey, that's what she said.
So what I like to do is just slide it in at the skinniest portion and then twist it in. And when you do that, it should lock into place. And wrapping things up here, just like we did with our vertical exhaust pipe, you'll locate 3 other square peg holes on the roof of the M113. And that's to accommodate both antennas that this set comes with. Now these antennae resemble the ones that we got on the Jungle Phalanx, except these are entirely 3D printed. You'll find no bendy wire here, which I kind of prefer because it helps maintain the shape a little bit better. We get a few more 3D printed details as we get towards the bottom, and you'll also notice these square pegs that will accommodate the square peg holes on the roof. And it's all a simple matter of preference. There's no wrong answer here. And now that we've done that, that brings me to my favorite part, which just so happens to be the weapons. And for that, we need to bring in a Gridiron staple.
We're not gonna beat a 50 caliber machine gun.
But of course, we love the 50 cal on this channel, and Gridiron Studios, like all of their weapons, continues to sculpt them impeccably. The only real difference that we're getting with this 50 cal than others that they've designed is that we're getting a protrusion sticking out of the side. And that's to accommodate this weapon mount. It's 3D printed out of a black resin just like our 50 cal is, and we have some pretty interesting shapes going on here, from the space that we have for our box magazine, as well as the square gap that we have for a spare gun shield that you might have lying around. That's in addition to a peg that will allow it to attach to the roof of our M113. But when it comes to attaching the 50 cal to the mount, please take your time. If you rush it, you might accidentally attach it backward, and if you do that, those forked prongs won't come out very easily. What you instead want to do is make sure that this forked prong is facing away from the box magazine gap. As I said, it's a pretty secure fit, it's not going anywhere, and there's enough tension so that it will hold its position if you tilt it up or down. And if you did it the right way like I mentioned, you can place this box magazine in, and it'll look like it's being fed directly from it. And when it's attached, it won't hinder its movement whatsoever. So now all we have to do is put it in position. And with that, our M113 is complete.
Wow. Just wow.
So first things first, let's go ahead and man the driver's position. And for that, I'm bringing in clutch. I think he needs something a little bit more heavy duty than the Vamp. I also like that he has a tool belt, so it could be fun to do some toy photography like he's working on the engine. Now while clutch isn't the biggest figure in the world, right off the bat you're going to notice that the opening for the hatch is pretty narrow. Fortunately, you can remove it to make it a little bit wider. And like the Hound or the Phalanx, we do have that standard removable steering wheel, so what I like to do is take it, put it in our figure's hands, get him in a seated position, and then carefully drop him down. Now honestly, it is a bit of a pain to get a figure inside, but it does look pretty cool once you have him in the seat, and once you do that, just reattach the hatch. And now that we've got a driver, we're gonna need some troopers. And for that, I'm bringing in the Night Force Shockwave, and because of the helmet he comes included with, he also doubles as a pretty good Night Force trooper. And since I have exactly 6 of these guys, there'll be just enough seats to accommodate them. And while classified weapons are getting a lot better, I'm gonna equip some of these troopers with some Gridiron Studios firearms. Get these guys in a seated position, take that roof off, and you can also remove the roof base so you can load up your figures faster and easier than you could in the Phalanx. And remember that light up feature I mentioned? All you have to do is pull the pull tab and watch the show.
This is getting better by the minute.
Yeah, that's a feature that was carried over from the Phalanx. When you want to turn the light on, you just leave it tightened, but when you want to turn it off, you just unscrew it, and then the light should go off. And if you unscrew it all the way, you'll find some button cell batteries, so in case they die, you can always replace them. And as for a gunner, since we have a bit of a Night Force theme going on, I think Falcon would be the perfect person for the job. And he's sporting some Gridiron headgear. So all we have to do, get the gun out of the way, lift the hatch, and then slip him through. So Falcon, what do you think? Very nice. Gosh, what was that about? I should have known, that pesky trench viper. It's a good thing he doesn't have very good aim. Go ahead and take him out.
Headshot.
Damn!
Good shot, Falcon. As good as this APC is, I must admit, the whole setup does leave us a bit exposed. In fact, historically speaking, the M113 wasn't really designed to take a hit or deliver punishment like an infantry fighting vehicle or IFV. But I wonder if we could remedy that. Anyone got any suggestions?
Armor improvements.
You're exactly right, John, and I think the retro upgrade kit would work nicely. With it, we're going to get 3 gun shields, a pair of standard ones and an extra large one, 2 optional side armor plates, some brand new turret armor, and a pair of mounted M60s with box magazines. Starting with the M60s, normally we would find these mounted on the passenger side of a fast attack vehicle similar to what the Jungle Hound is based off of, or the G.I. Joe classified All-Striker. So it's cool that we get a pair of these to retrofit with the M113, similar to what you probably would see during the Vietnam conflict. And just like most Gridiron firearms, it's been sculpted pretty well. We even get a Gridiron logo towards the back. And because of its design, we get a square gap right here on the mount, which will accommodate 1 gun shield, which we've seen a few times before. We get black riveting details around the perimeter and some evidence that it's been hit with some gunfire. But in any case, you'll see a square tab right here on the back, and it will just connect. Like so, leaving just enough space for it to tilt up and down. And to complete the look, we just need to attach this 1 box magazine with gold bullets painted inside. And the cool thing here is that we get 2 of them. I think I'm gonna call these the twins. So how about we bring out a couple of troopers? And while we're at it, let's give Falcon some extra protection too. And we can start with this turret armor. We've got some interesting shapes going on. I love how it kind of curves up into almost a cone shape. And then we also have some riveting details present along the top and bottom. And just check out that 3D printing. It's smooth on the inside and on the out. But the only real evidence when you go to the underside, which we won't really see anyway. You can see these grooves that will interact with the small windows that we're getting on the commander's turret. So first, let's get rid of that 50 cal. And if you're still a bit confused about the direction that this fits, we get a little bit of a hint with this arrow that's been molded that points us to the front. We just have to close the command hatch first. I really like the way this turret looks form-fitted against the entrance of the hatch, and you'll have no problem opening it. And when you do, it provides an extra level of protection on the back for the commander's position. So now, we just need to secure the front, and we can do so with this extra large gun shield. And aside from its size and shape, it's the same concept and detail as we got on our smaller variant. Right down to the riveting and super smooth 3D printing. But this one doesn't have any evidence of gunshots. However, it still does have that square tab, which will interact perfectly with our 50 cal mount. We just gotta line everything up. Very nice. So, let's get Falcon back into the mix and remount this guy. So Falcon, what do you think? So awesome. It really is giving off some serious tank vibes, but to complete the look, we just need to bring in the side armor. It's really just a flat panel with a 3D printed gold star to mirror the top of the M113. And yes, as you would expect, the 3D printing is pretty smooth, with the only obvious area being the layer lines in the back, which won't really be exposed. So to attach this piece, all we have to do is come back to the side of the M113, and we're just gonna remove these vents. Now to do that in the easiest way, what you're gonna do is just grab the bottom of it, and then you're just gonna pull out while also lifting slightly up. It's pretty tricky to get the hang of at first, but you'll get used to it. And then when we go to the back, you'll see how it was connected using these 2 prongs. And I've done this several times too. The prongs are very durable, so you shouldn't have to worry about them bending or breaking on you. Literally, to attach this panel, we just slide it on. And it sits pretty flush. And we'll just do the same thing to the opposite side. But as cool as this thing looks, I do have one gripe. Yeah, for some reason, this side falls off way too easily for me. Now they do have the slightly raised area that's been sculpted on them, which gives them a little bit of a lip to help it stay secure when connected. So while the left side isn't really giving me any issues, the right one is. However, what I like to do is just take a little bit of sticky tack and then apply some to the top and bottom areas, and then simply reapply. Yep, feels like a pretty secure fit to me. But without further ado, the retro version of the M113 is complete.
Good morning, Vietnam!
The new armor pieces that we're getting give this APC a more streamlined look, which harkens back to the original design of the M113, and then going up top, we're definitely getting some Vietnam era vibes. And I think this thing is finally ready for battle, unless John has any other suggestions.
Need more firepower.
Well, we could always bring in the turret command module. Right on cue. Now this was one of my favorite upgrades that Gridiron Studios introduced last year. It has a really cool command module with moving parts, some extra weapons in these tow missiles, and then a few weapons that you can carry over from the APC, not to mention an articulated turret. And if you have the phalanx, there's a good chance many of you bought this item. But the cool thing is that Gridiron Studios actually made it so that this piece is compatible with our M113. We just have to remove a few parts. And for good measure, we're just going to clear a few figures out. And then lift a few seats up. And you'll find that the turret command module will fit the exact same way on the M113 as it does with the phalanx. Just line up the grooves, turn it a little bit, let it drop, turn it again in the opposite direction, let it drop again, and lock it into place. And the end result is awesome. It can fully rotate 360 degrees, and because of that command module, we even get a fully rotating command center. But as you can see, it does eat up a ton of space. We still get a little bit of seating in these back seats. And with the command module seating plus the 2 positions we get up top, we're only really losing 1 seat on the inside of the M113. But inevitably, there are some of you who didn't get the phalanx and therefore probably don't have this turret upgrade either, and it is a $150 purchase. Fortunately, the folks at Gridiron Studios took that into account and provided the Wildcat configuration, which allows you to purchase the M113 along with the turret without the command module. And even though it looks similar, there are a few differences. You get the turret by itself without the command module or the tow missiles, a tank barrel, a removable backpack, an M249, and a modified weapons adapter that doubles as a camera upper. Now, if you haven't already done so, I highly encourage you guys to watch my review of the turret command module, because what we have here is basically the exact same thing we got in that video, right down to the tank barrel. We can pop the top off, and you'll see a little space right here. That's intended for our M249. Just slide it right in. You'll find a little groove that hooks right into the handle, locks into place, and now you got another option. And just like our M113, we have another peg right here that will accommodate a backpack. This time we have 2 backpacks sculpted together. The details are just as nice. So for those of you who really want to make it look like your figures are geared up, you have that option. And it fills in that space quite nicely. And then perhaps the most interesting piece of all is this weapons adapter that also doubles as a camera upper. You'll recall in the turret command module review that it came with an additional camera upper that attached to that weapons adapter, but that does take the spot of a weapon that you could use. So this option here is pretty much the best of both worlds. Now usually these come pre-attached, but if we turn it over, you'll notice a ball socket that will plug into this ball joint right here. And all we have to do is lock it in, give it a nice press. So now we not only have something that can swivel, but can also accommodate some of our Gridiron weapons. And then finally, bringing in our roof piece, you'll see that tab for the light up feature. And when you turn it over, we've got light. And that's pretty much all there is to this set, so let's go ahead and swap it out with our turret command module. And before I completely removed it, I wanted to give you guys a look at the exploded view. It is a sight to behold. And with that removed, let's go ahead and attach our Wildcat turret. And we can also repurpose some M113 accessories like this antenna. And because we no longer have any more space in the back of our M113 to attach our M60s, we can give him the Falcon and he can use it to man the commander's position. And because we have a whole other support position, plus we still have room for our 50 cal, I think Quarrel should join the fray. And for good measure, I also added the upper that came with our phalanx, just in case Falcon needs to make sparks fly with another 50 cal and a rocket launcher. And I know you must be thinking that that's a lot of firepower, but this is stuff we've already seen before. And I know you guys want that new.
We just want new. We want new everything.
But you guys should know by now, I always deliver. Or I should say Gridiron does. And right here we have the heavy, light, and sci-fi tank barrels. And if any of you actually know what the name of these specific barrels are, please let me know in the comment section below. So let's try the light on for size. And that is a very strong fit. Let's test it out. Too light. Let's try the sci-fi one on for size. Nice, but a bit overkill. Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards the heavy. What do you guys think?
Oh yeah.
And now, I think we're finally ready to take this thing out.
Requesting backup. If anyone's getting this message, I don't know how much more of this we can take. If I'm going out, I'm going out fighting.
Gridiron weapons systems engaged.
Yo. Hey, soldier! On your left!
Man, it looks like we saved the day, but unfortunately, not without a few casualties. What's the point in being able to have all this power to hurt if we don't also have the capacity to help and heal? But wait a minute, do you guys hear that? I think someone has a solution for us. It's our good buddy MP4C, coming in clutch with the M113 ambulance kit. So let me tell you what it comes with. We get a pair of ambulance panels, 3 spine board, 3 additional ammo cans, the backpack, and a radio antenna. Now fortunately it doesn't look like we have any fatalities, but our troops do look pretty banged up. So let's go ahead and replace those panels with these new ones. They have a 3D printed Red Cross medical symbol, which looks pretty clean. And just like our previous panels, they should hopefully snap on pretty easily. Unfortunately, these panels fit on a lot better on both sides, so I think I just had a defect with one of my previous ones. Now, as cool as this thing looks with the medical plates attached, I think we're gonna have to ditch the turret. Otherwise, this vehicle is liable to lose its protected status under the Geneva Conventions.
Explain.
In short, it's an international set of treaties that form the foundation of international humanitarian law. And without getting too much into the weeds, it means that vehicles intended to help the sick and the wounded during war, like ambulances, couldn't engage in hostile conflict or carry heavy weapons, and in turn, they're not supposed to be targeted. So how about we return this thing to its base model? And once you get it back to the base model, you can attach the radio antenna. I love the mesh pattern that we're getting on the dish, and then when we get to the back, we get a little bit of porting detail and some other technical details along with this antenna, and it also happens to be on a weapons mount, and we have a couple of ports to choose from. We got a pretty strong signal, so let's see if we can get a hold of a doctor. That was quick. It's Doc, and he comes bearing gifts in the form of this spine board. Now, a spine board is basically like a stretcher used in pre-hospital care to immobilize patients who have spinal or limb injuries, and the scope that we have here is pretty spot on. It's been 3D printed out of a green resin, and it has plenty of areas for our 6-inch figures to grip onto, as well as plenty of slots going down the center that you could actually weave a strap through to help tie your figures down. And because it's just over 6 inches long, it should work with many of our standard 6-inch action figures. So let's go ahead and get a figure on this thing. One thing that I think is extra cool is that you can actually stretch the spine board across the 2 weapons platforms, so you can almost make it like a makeshift operating table for Doc. This upgrade kit also comes with 3 additional ammo cans that I imagine could also be used to store medicine or other first aid supplies. We'll just put them on the seats. And for good measure, I'm also going to bring in these Fortnite medkit accessories from the Jazzwares Fortnite line. And I think they'll work perfect for this upgrade kit as another display piece. I have a feeling with all this help, this trooper is going to make it. But let's give Doc some space to work. And last but not least, we get this extra backpack accessory. It's been sculpted pretty well. I love the walkie-talkie detail that we're getting in this pouch up front, as well as the 2 grenades on either side and a small pouch for accessories that your figure might hold. Now, unlike the backpacks that came with our previous upgrade kits with the M113, this one is actually compatible with our 6-inch figures thanks to this gap in the back. Gridiron Studios sells these harnesses separately on their website, and as you can see, they have a hook on the back of it that allows any 6-inch action figures to now wear them. And for our purposes, we're just going to bring in a grunt trooper. So now you can have another trooper administering some medical supplies that are likely in this backpack. But if you don't have one of these harnesses lying around, Gridiron Studios also gave us this included hook that you can hook on the back of it. And then now, you can add this backpack to the side of your M113. So you can really kit and customize this thing exactly the way you want it. And that's pretty much the last accessory that comes with this kit. So speaking of customization, how about we dive deeper into the M113's modularity? If you take the base model of the M113, it's not very modular since it doesn't have any weapon adapters. But if you have the phalanx, you can do a lot of part swapping with the roofs and stowage baskets. So you can get a look like this. I call it the M11P, because phalanx starts with a P. The M113 is also capable of towing along a Gridiron Studios heavy weapons trailer. And if you don't have that, maybe you have a Cobra HMS from the G.I. Joe Classified line. It can pull both with ease. If you have the Wildcat version, you will have a weapons adapter that will allow you to swap everything from an Earl upper, a Fat Boy upper, and even an Equalizer upper. But my favorite is to swap out the Heavy Sentry defense turret, which also doubles as an upper. And when you swap out the cannons for the barrel upgrade kit, you can really have a lot of fun.
The possibilities are endless here.
So as for size comparisons, the M113 is just over 17 inches long, roughly 11 inches wide, and not including the antennas, nearly 11 inches tall. So it won't eat up quite as much shelf space as the Phalanx, but since it is in the 1/12 scale, it will pair nicely with 6-inch lines you may be collecting, like for example the remastered Mighty Morphin Rangers from the Hasbro Power Rangers Lightning Collection. It's also going to work well with Marvel Legends. Here it is next to the Retro Fantastic Four with Dr. Doom, along with the Walgreen Silver Surfer. And of course, it's going to pair really well with anything in the classified line, but we have a couple of top villains for good measure. Moving up to 7-inch scale, it's going to be a bit undersized for some McFarlane DC Multiverse Zack Snyder Justice League action figures. And you could probably fudge it in with some futuristic alien figures like what we get with the 4 Horsemen Studios Legion builders from the Cosmic Legions line. And of course, it's going to look great next to some of my favorite troopers in the Red Shadows Wolf Troopers by Skeletron. Here it is next to some other 7-inch offerings like the Retro Mirage comic TMNT figures by NECA. And here's how it stacks up with some of my favorite Gridiron offerings in the Level 2 and Level 3 Coil Mech upgrade kits. And finally, here's how it looks under black light. And as you might expect, no effect. But in case you were wondering, here's how it looks paired up next to some larger vehicles you may be collecting, like the G.I. Joe Classified HasLab His Tank and Dragonfly. I think it's going to work really well with both of them. You're going to find that it takes up the same footprint as a McFarlane DC Multiverse Dark Knight Tumbler, as well as the Batmo Beast. And I really dig the way it looks flanked next to a couple of Robo-Skulls by Skeletron. Here's how it stacks up next to the NECA Kenner Predator Blade Fighter vehicle, as well as their cartoon turtle van. And the moment many of you have probably been waiting for, here's how it looks stacked up next to the Gridiron Studios Jungle Phalanx, the Jungle Hound, and the Heavy Weapons trailer. Now just like the Phalanx, in addition to figures, it can also carry vehicles. However, because it is smaller, it won't be able to fit as much as the Phalanx did. So using the roof for access, I was surprised to find that the M113 can still hold up to 3 ram cycles if you stagger their orientation. Professor X and his hover chair still have no problem fitting inside as long as his head is ducked. But as for the Cobra Flight Pod, you can fit it in, but it'll have to be crooked. And the same is going to be true for the Robo-Skull Land Speeder. And of course, it'll be able to fit at least one Gridiron Studios drone. However, I'm sad to report that the Crusader Longboat by Detour Customs is a bit too much for this APC, though it does look kinda cool sticking out like that. Now you know.
And knowing is half the battle.
Gridiron.
So as for my final thoughts, the Gridiron Studios M113 is another fantastic vehicle. It has a really good size and weight to it. You can easily see at least 7 standard 6-inch action figures. The movable treads make this beast a lot of fun to move around, and the ability to work with other Gridiron offerings makes this feel just as modular as the real thing. And I think the fact that it can work with military-inspired 6-inch action figure lines like the Classified series and its realistic representation of an M113 is going to allow it to hit on a lot of different levels depending on the kind of collector you are. Not to mention, Gridiron Studios absolutely knocked it out of the park with the different upgrade kits you can get with this to make it really pop. But it's not perfect. I do wish the panels on my retro upgrade kit could stay on a bit better, but I think your mileage is going to vary on that. I also think the base model could have had a few more weapons, but for $300, it's about $100 less than the Phalanx, and if you are a Gridiron Studios collector, then you should have plenty of fun testing out the modularity with the other items you already have in your collection. The big question here is which version should you get? In my opinion, the base model is a great purchase by itself, but I personally think if you get it, you should also throw in the retro upgrade kit. If you don't already have the phalanx or the turret command module, then I think that the Wildcat configuration is definitely going to be the route you should go, because it gives you the best of both worlds, especially if you throw in the tank barrel 3-pack. And if you're a real diehard, I think many of you really should consider the ambulance upgrade kit. We have plenty of weapons and vehicles, so I think throwing a medical vehicle into the mix is going to do wonders for a lot of displays. All that to say, if you're in the market for another large-scale vehicle, I don't think you're going to go wrong with the M113, and hopefully my review helped you in that decision one way or another. So thank you guys for sticking around for the whole thing. It was an absolute blast to put together, and I hope it was a blast for you guys to watch it. And if you think so, feel free to like, comment, and share my video if you think others might find it entertaining or informative as well. And thank you guys again for all of your support, especially Gridiron Studios. I really do enjoy putting these videos together, and knowing that many of you have been waiting for this one means a whole lot. But in any event, be sure to stick around for a gallery at the end. And as always, collect responsibly.